Peter sporting glasses I've never seen on him before at the Photon Beard booth. I guess we're NAB 2016.
We are indeed, yes.
Cool. I guess we walked by yesterday and we saw some interesting stuff over here on the side, but I'm going to let you just talk about it.
Okay. This is a new product that we're launching here at the show. We showed it to a few people at IBC back in September, and people quite liked it. We've now almost got it into production.
Okay.
It's an LED remote phosphor.
Oh, okay.
Now, there's plenty of LED remote phosphor lights out there. One of our problems with a lot of the lights that are out there, they're a flat sheet of light,
yes,
and they give you an awful lot of light in a huge area. But for TV, which is our main application, you don't want just loads of light everywhere. You need to direct it into a certain area.
Yes.
So we came up with a novel concept of putting a reflector around the light source, something that's been done for many tens of years, but seems to have been forgotten about in recent times.
Right.
So in terms of operation, this will operate exactly as your studio fluorescent. You could take your studio fluorescent out, put this in, and it will give you exactly the same quality of light and shape, beam shape and direction, all that sort of thing. But being LED, it's got some advantages. A light of this size in fluorescent would be 110 watts.
Okay.
This one is 90 watts. So there's a bit of saving there.
Okay.
It's also about 20% brighter than the 110 watt fluorescent. So it's lower wattage, more light output.
Okay.
Very low heat. I mean, this is dimmed down at the moment. I'll put it up on full so you can see it, but then I'll turn it down again because it's probably washing the camera out.
Yeah. It's like for remote phosphor, and I guess for people who might be seeing this and wondering, what's the difference between this and a regular LED?
Well, all LEDs work in the same way. The light that's produced at the junction of the LED is a blue light.
Okay.
And you might remember a few years ago there was a couple of Japanese guys who got the Nobel Peace Prize for inventing the blue LED that allowed us to create white light from LED.
Okay.
So you produce a blue light and then you put phosphors around that, just the same sort of phosphors that you get in fluorescent tubes. You put that around the junction of the LED, but because you're working in a very tiny space,
yes,
getting repeatability and accuracy is very difficult. And this is where sometimes you can put two LED panels next to each other,
yeah,
and they're completely different.
Yeah.
And even two LEDs are completely different because you can't get that repeatability. So with remote phosphor, instead of putting it on the LED, you put it on a sheet of plastic away from the LED. And if I just take this off, you'll see the blue light there.
Oh, okay.
This is actually now your light source.
So that thing's completely passive, and it's just being excited by the...
Exactly. The blue light is purely the energy source that pumps energy into here.
Okay.
And depending on the phosphors that you mix on here, this can be colour balanced for tungsten or daylight, high CRI, low CRI. The only reason you would go low CRI is because then you can pump out more light. You can put spikes in there, so you can get a lot of light, which is not good for our industry. So, in our industry, we would stick with high CRI, high TLCI.
It's for like people with chroma key.
I mean, that's a good example because you can make this now just purely a very narrow bandwidth, green output.
Yes. Okay, interesting.
So, and then when I put this back in, you'll see that you'll see this change colour. Oops. Get this right, and suddenly out comes white light.
So I guess what remote phosphor, like what tubes do you have available right away?
Currently we have two available, 3200 and 5600 Kelvin, so tungsten and daylight, all full spectrum, high CRI, high TLCI.
Okay.
The neat thing is to create a custom phosphor sheet is only about a 3-week process. Okay. So if a customer comes to us and says, I need light output of this wavelength and 96 CRI, give us 3 to 6 weeks and we can mix up the phosphors and make the panel in exactly the size that you want.
Okay.
So this is the smallest unit, the 90 watt. We're doing this, we're replicating the studio fluorescents. Okay. So the studio fluorescents used to come in 2 tube, 4 tube, 6 tube and 8 tube.
Okay.
So this is one module, then there's going to be 2 modules, 3 modules, and 4 modules.
Okay.
So 2, 4, 6, and 8 tube.
But they're all this length, though, right?
Yes, they're all. I mean, we could make them whatever length we need, but this is a good size because again, the problem if you have a huge light for motion picture, you often need a huge light.
Yes.
But in TV, you're often restricted, and you want to light one person, and then another person, and then another person. So if you just have a huge light, you can light all 3 of them, but you've got limited control. So by having 3 individual lights, you can if this person's got slightly darker skin tone, you can balance for that. This person's very very white skin tone, you can balance for that. So in TV, you need that flexibility.
Right.
You're not always just wanting to blast light everywhere.
Okay. I guess in terms of remote controllability, is this like regular DMX?
Yeah, I mean these ones aren't. These are still pre-production prototypes, so you'll see a little bit of the blue LED leak there.
Yeah.
That will disappear. Which typical trade shows. Before we got on the plane, this one ran for 1 hour, and then we packed it up and brought it here. This one ran for 10 minutes. We said it's working. Put it in the bag. Off to the airport. So things like that little bit of blue LED leak that you can see there, that will disappear in the production ones, and there will be DMX in and out.
Okay. But it'll just be like DMX 512, or you get Ethernet? Okay. DMX 512.
DMX 512. The problem with the Ethernet connections, a lot of people use Ethernet because it's a cheap connector, but it's a cheap connector. and how many times have you had to redo your internet connection?
I guess not so much. I don't know. We finally are on fiber now in the studio. But,
right.
I understand totally.
And the nice thing about the DMX is it's a solid connector. So once it's connected, you know that it's connected. So most people are sticking with 5-pin XLR. The other unique thing, and I don't understand why it's unique, but it's straight power in here, 110 volts or 220 volts. Most of the other remote phosphor devices and a lot of LED devices have a separate power supply. In the TV studio situation, you don't want to have to be putting your light up and the power supply. You just want to put the light up and put power in. So here it's straight 110 volts in, and away you go.
And actually, I guess on that note, so is there active power factor correction? Do you does the one unit work on 220 and 110?
No, the driver in there is a single voltage driver, so it's 110 volt or 220 volt.
Okay.
That might change in the future, but at the moment
so there is no transformer inside. You're actually directly powering.
Directly power.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there is transformers in there because the LEDs themselves work on 12 volts.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's all within the electronics in the head.
Okay. So,
yeah.
I guess how much and also how heavy are these?
They're very light. I mean, there's a data sheet on the internet with the weights on, but I think they start. This one's about. I'm guessing that's about 5 kilos.
Okay, yeah.
We did weigh that one before we came out. That one was 8 kilos, and I mean we took the whole lot. These 2 plus a few other things in our luggage coming over here, and that had a 50-pound, 23 kilo weight limit, and we were just I think we were half a kilo under the limit. So sort of 45 pounds with 2 lights and power supplies and a few other bits and pieces.
Cool. How much money?
They start at around about $1,300 for the 90 watt with local control, and then they go up to about $3,500 for the 4 module unit with DMX. Okay. The other neat thing, if you've got a studio with a lot of these lights in there and you're worried about spares, this is a completely independent module. Okay. So if one of these fails, all you have to do is take that out, put the other one in. So you only need to hold maybe half a dozen of these.
Right. As opposed to multiple panels.
Multiple panels.
Okay.
The other thing that is pretty unique, we're offering this with a full 5-year warranty on both light output and light quality.
So light output as in
the amount of light. I mean, obviously there's tolerances because with any LED, as soon as you turn it on, it starts to degrade. But we're saying after 5 years, it will still be minimum or maximum 70% of the original light output. So you're only going to lose 30% over 5 years. If LEDs fail prematurely, we will replace them. No argument.
So this starts to sound like a good possibility for growth lamps for marijuana. I guess you want to run them all day long.
Indeed.
Warranty them.
Yeah.
And then create a custom phosphor.
Well, because we actually calculated how long. If you had this on 24/7 for 5 years, it's actually I think it works out as 43,750 hours, and the rated life on these is 40,000 hours. So we're possibly risking 3,000 hours over 5 years. I reckon I can live with that.
Anyhow, no, this looks great. Peter, again, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, have a good rest of the show.
Thank you.